Welcome to the deep dive. So you gave us a whole stack of sources on what might be one of the most theologically charged books in the New Testament.
Oh, definitely. Paul's Epistle to the Colossians.
Yeah, often called the greatest Christological treatise. It's just a brilliant, dense defense of who Jesus is.
It's a phenomenal text, and our goal here is to, cut through some of that dense language and really distill why Paul wrote it, what specific errors he was fighting,
And what his response was.
and what his response, the absolute supremacy of Christ means for us today. The whole letter, it really pivots on one single truth: solus Christus.
The Christ alone.
Exactly. Everything in Christianity, whether you're talking about creation or redemption or how we live, it all comes down to what you believe about Jesus.
And our sources really stress that this message is, well, desperately necessary today. Paul was dealing with this kind of wild syncretism.
A blending of everything.
A blending of everything, yeah. It apprised this tolerance of error, but at the same time, it was really intolerant of any fixed truth.
That sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
It sounds eerily contemporary.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
But to really understand the fight, I think we have to start with the battlefield itself, the city of Colossae. It's a surprisingly small place to get a letter this important.
That's what really stood out to me. The history is just so dramatic. Colossae wasn't always this forgotten town.
Not all.
The historian Herodotus, the father of history, he called it a great city back around 480 BC. It was famous for its wool, for its weaving industry.
A really opulent place in the Lycus River Valley. But it truly went, as one source put it, from glory to oblivion. It just declined so quickly, especially when you compare it to its neighbors, Laodicea and Hierapolis.
And the geography didn't help one bit. The historian Strabo, he called the area Euseistos.
Which is such a grim term. It means good for earthquakes.
Good for earthquakes. Wow. That tells you everything about their sense of security, right?
It does. And that physical instability became devastatingly real around 60 AD.
When that massive earthquake hit the whole valley.
Exactly. And the key insight here is how the different cities recovered. Laodicea was this wealthy banking hub. It proudly rebuilt itself without any help from Rome.
But Colossae.
Colossae was just too poor. It never really recovered. It just stayed this small, declining settlement.
So you have this small, physically shaky, almost forgotten city. But spiritually, it was a pressure cooker.
A total pressure cooker. We know it had a large Jewish colony. Some estimates say up to 50,000 in the region, so that brought in Jewish legalism.
But it wasn't just that. These Jewish ideas were already mixing with Greek philosophical speculation.
Right, and then you throw in the big one, the cult of Cybele, this pervasive, emotional, sometimes ascetic cult of the great mother goddess of Asia.
So it's a true melting pot.
The perfect environment for spiritual error to just flourish.
And that spiritual chaos is exactly why Paul, who's writing this from a Roman prison.
After he gets news from his colleague Epaphras.
Right. He pens this intensely apologetic letter. The church was being attacked by what we now call the heresy of Colossae. It was a total assault on Christian truth.
And we can really break that attack down into three main areas. The first and the most serious was the attack on Christology, on who Christ is.
And this came mostly from early Gnostic thinking, right?
Primarily, yes.
So maybe break down Gnosticism for us really quickly. What was their core belief that just caused all this trouble?
The foundational Gnostic belief, the starting point, was that matter, anything physical, was inherently evil or corrupt. Only spirit was good.
Okay, so if you start there, you immediately have two huge problems for Christianity.
Massive problems. Problem one is creation.
If God is holy, he could not have created evil matter.
Exactly. So they invented this idea that God created a chain of mediating spirits or eons, and it was these lesser beings that actually formed the physical world. The true God was too pure to touch anything material.
Which leads right into the second and just catastrophic problem, the incarnation.
Right. If matter is evil, Christ could not have had a real physical body of flesh and bones.
So they denied both his divinity and his humanity.
Precisely. To the Gnostics, Jesus was just a spiritual ghost. Maybe he was one of those eons or mediating angels, but he was certainly not the one true God dwelling in flesh. They weren't seeking faith. They claimed to have a secret wisdom, a gnosis, that gave them special knowledge.
That makes the stakes so clear. If Jesus isn't fully God and fully man, Christianity it stops being Christianity.
It completely falls apart.
And that brings us to the second attack, the one on redemption.
Yeah, the false teachers were stressing that you reach God through your own effort, through self-improvement, special rituals. Basically, anything but the atoning sacrifice of Christ alone.
So this is that classic legalistic challenge, the idea that I have to do something to earn God's favor.
It's the constant human urge to be the hero of your own salvation story. I love that quote from Charles Haddon Spurgeon. He said, "It's easier to teach a lion to be a vegetarian than to convince a man he can't be saved by his own striving." And that legalism led directly to the third attack, which was on sanctification, on how you're supposed to live.
So if Christ isn't enough,
Then you need external, rigorous rules to make yourself perfect. They enforce this intense legalism ritual circumcision, severe food and drink restrictions, obsessive observance of special days and Sabbaths.
and also these severe ascetic practices, right? Self-denial.
Right. Rigorous self-denial, all based on a false sense of humility or special visions they claim to have.
Okay, so Paul's counter-argument is really the only one possible. Christ is utterly supreme. He is the pleroma, the fullness, and he provides everything.
Everything you need, yes. Paul uses this crisis to just articulate the most definitive doctrine of Christ. First, he refutes Gnosticism by declaring Christ is the exact image, the icon of the invisible God.
And that word icon doesn't mean a copy, right?
No, not an imitation or a copy. He is the exegesis, the complete, perfect explanation of God made visible.
And he tackles the incarnation head on.
He does. He declares that all the fullness of the Godhead dwells in him bodily. And the word Paul uses there is theotetos. It means the essential, actual state of being God.
Not just being godlike.
Not just theoses, which is godlike. No, Christ is God in the flesh permanently.
And that just completely destroys the Gnostic idea of eons or angels as creators.
It demolishes it.
Yeah.
Paul says Christ is the firstborn of all creation, which means he's the sovereign head, the ruler, not the first created thing. And then he uses these three powerful prepositions to detail Christ's role in creation.
Okay, lay those out for us, because this is where the doctrine gets really cosmic.
He says all things were created. One, in him. So Christ is the sphere, the primary cause. He planned it.
Got it.
Two, by means of him. He is the agent, the instrumental cause. He's the one who actually realized the plan, the verbal creator.
Okay, and the
They're
third.
him. This is the target, the final cause. Everything that exists for his glory and his pleasure.
That's just profound. It means every single thing, visible and invisible, including the very angels the Gnostics were obsessed with, was made by Christ and is subservient to him.
There can be no rivals. Absolutely none. And from there, Paul turns to refuting that legalistic attack on redemption. Salvation, he argues, is a sovereign divine rescue operation.
It's not us climbing up, it's God reaching down.
It's pure divine intervention. He says God liberated us, literally plucked us out from the empire of darkness, from Satan's domain, and transported us into the kingdom of his beloved Son.
It's a complete transfer of citizenship.
Totally complete. And the mechanism for this freedom is one of the most powerful images in the whole letter. The canceled debt.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Paul says God absolutely canceled the written debt. The Greek word is dogmasin. It refers to the official legal accusations against us, the list of obligations we can never fulfill.
So Paul is saying God didn't just forgive the debt. He eliminated the document itself.
Yes, he took that formal legal indictment, the tally of all our failures, and he nailed it to the cross. This wasn't a quiet little transaction. It was a cosmic triumph.
A public victory, almost like a Roman general's parade after a war.
That is the exact analogy Paul uses. He says Jesus stripped. The Greek is apikoudousamenos, the principalities and powers of their weapons, exposed them to public shame, and triumphed over them on the cross.
So the cross, which looked like the ultimate defeat,
Was actually the decisive cosmic victory. It nullified all our legal obligations to the powers of darkness.
which sets the stage perfectly for the practical side. If Christ did all this, if he is the body and the old rules are just a shadow, then how are we supposed to live? Does freedom mean we can just do whatever we want?
And that is the critical question. And Paul's answer is an emphatic no. The freedom Christ purchased demands a new life because we have a new identity. Our address is no longer our earthly home. Our fundamental, permanent address is in Christ.
So if we've been rescued and relocated, what does that new citizenship actually look like?
Well, Paul focuses his own energy on this. You see it in his prayer life, even when he's chained up in Rome. He uses the word agonia, describing his prayer as this exhausting athletic struggle.
And he's not praying for his own release.
Not at all. He's not praying for money, even though the people were poor. He is praying that they achieve epignosis, the full knowledge of God's will.
Which is a deeper relational knowledge, right? not the secret gnosis of the heretics.
Exactly. Paul is showing us that spiritual maturity and knowing God's will is just immensely more important than material needs.
That intense focus on God's will leads right into that famous metaphor of the spiritual wardrobe change. We have to mortify, make dead our earthly nature.
And the list of things to mortify is so telling. It includes the obvious sins, but then it includes one very specific economic vice: plenexia.
Covetousness, the insatiable desire to have more.
Yes, and Paul straight up equates it with idolatry.
And for a city like Colossae, which was near major trade and banking centers, that would have been a direct hit.
A direct hit. You can't claim you're pure because you follow some ascetic rules if your heart is consumed by the drive for more stuff. It's a hypocritical sacrifice.
This is what replaces that old nature. What do we put on?
Paul lists these key virtues. He starts with tender affections of compassion, sklanchna oiktermu. It literally means compassionate viscera, a sympathy from your very gut.
And then he gets into virtues that were completely countercultural in that Roman world.
Humility, for one. The Greeks saw humility as weakness, as servile. Paul makes it a central Christian virtue, a correct understanding of yourself before God.
And meekness, proths, which isn't weakness.
Not at all. It's power under control, like a tamed horse. Then there's long-suffering macrothymia, the spirit that refuses to retaliate. The Greeks valued vengeance. Paul commands the opposite.
And what holds all this together?
Love, agape. Paul says love is the belt or the bond of perfection that holds all the other virtues in place. Without it, everything else eventually unravels.
And finally, this new life completely transforms their community, their social structures. Paul lays out these revolutionary ethics based on mutual obligations.
This is so radical for the ancient world. Authority was always one way: husband over wife, master over slave. Paul introduces reciprocity. He puts obligations on the person in power.
So husbands are commanded to love their wives, not treat them with bitterness.
Parents are told not to irritate their children to the point of discouraging them. And most dramatically, he tells masters to treat their slaves with justice and equity, reminding them that they too have a master in heaven.
It's the first theological crack in the foundation of slavery.
It is. And Paul's own ministry, even from prison, embodies all of this: joyful suffering, faithful service, and that relentless agonia in prayer for the church.
And we get that little bittersweet glimpse into his personal life, with coworkers like Tychicus and Jesus Gisto, but then also the tragic case of Demas,
who abandoned him, having loved this present world. Paul's final message to his team, to people like Archippus, is just so simple: fulfill the ministry you received. Faithfulness is the goal, not worldly success.
So, zooming out, Paul's mission was a success. He refutes Gnosticism by showing Christ is fully divine, the creator. He refutes legalism by showing Christ's work is finished. The debt is canceled.
The contrast couldn't be clearer. The false teachers were pushing a life of restriction and secret knowledge. The authentic Christian life is defined by liberty from the debt and love as the bond of perfection.
And that leaves us with this final, maybe provocative thought to take with you. Paul's highest priority, even while literally chained up and facing death, was to persevere in seeking the full knowledge of God's will and finding the power to live it out. Given that single-minded focus, what temporal concerns, what forms of plenexia or anxiety might you need to actively release today, and what eternal priorities do you need to commit to pursuing with that same sense of agonia? Think about that.